My fiancée, the CEO, told me the company wasn't doing well and cut my salary in half. But moments later, I saw her junior assistant bragging on Facebook. My boss not only gave me a raise, but also bought me a luxury car so I wouldn't get tired commuting. So thoughtful. In the photo, he and my fiancée, Sarah, stood in front of a brand new, six-figure luxury car, looking blissfully happy together. I thought about it for 2 seconds, then liked the post. That evening, Sarah called an emergency meeting and, using the excuse that I was disrupting company morale, docked my entire month's salary to give to the junior assistant as compensation for emotional damages. My colleagues looked at me with pity, expecting me to fly into a rage. But I just calmly packed up my desk and placed my letter of resignation in front of her. Docking my pay isn't enough for bullying a colleague, is it? I'll do you one better and resign. Before the words had even settled, the junior assistant, Leo Hayes, chimed in. Daniel, how can you quit over something so small? He said. You've been with the company for so long, and Sarah is always so good to you. If you leave at a time like this, what will people think of her? Sarah, you should try to talk some sense into him. Sarah might have been about to reason with me, but after hearing Leo's speech, her temper flared. Reason with him? If he wants to leave, let him. My conscience is clear. I don't care what anyone says. She snatched my resignation, signed it, and threw it in my face. The onlookers stared, waiting for the drama to unfold. But I didn't argue as I would have in the past. I calmly picked up the paper from the floor. I'll leave as soon as I've transitioned my projects. No transition necessary. If you're going to get out now. Sarah pointed to the door, then, as if a thought occurred to her, added coldly, You quit, so there's no severance. At this, a few colleagues I was close with urged me to just apologize and not be rash. They all knew I had built this company from nothing, right alongside Sarah. When the company was short on cash, I was the one who endured endless nights of schmoozing investors to secure funding. When we were behind on a deadline, I led the team through 3 days straight of sleepless nights to get it done. I had poured my heart and soul into this business. Leaving now meant abandoning everything. But my mind was made up. I thanked them, gathered my belongings, and walked out. Before I left, I saw a flicker of something complex in Sarah's eyes. I knew she didn't believe I would actually go through with it. We had fought over Leo many times before. In the worst fight, Sarah had publicly humiliated me and given my entire annual bonus to him instead. I was so furious, I threatened to quit, but when it came time to leave, I always backed down. I would go back to her, swallow my pride, and act as if nothing had happened, burying myself in my work. She assumed I would do the same this time, that I would rationalize it all away. But she didn't know that my patience had finally been exhausted. Just as I stepped out of the building, a notification popped up on my phone. I opened it to see a large wire transfer from my friend, Mark. That morning, when Sarah had told me the company was struggling and that she had to cut my pay, my first instinct was to worry about the pressure she was under. I had immediately called Mark to arrange a $50,000 loan. I had planned to give it to her, but that's when I saw Leo's Facebook post. Suddenly, Sarah's real motive became clear. Yet, I felt a surprising sense of calm. There was no sadness, no jealous rage. Perhaps it was because this had happened too many times. Sarah had done so many outrageous things for Leo's sake that I was beginning to lose track of who her boyfriend was, me or him. I sent the money back to Mark with a message of thanks and headed to the parking garage. I found my beat-up old sedan, the one I'd been driving for a decade, its paint chipped in several places. Parked right next to it was a brand new Porsche, the very one Sarah had just gifted to Leo. The garage was full of empty spaces, but he had chosen to park right here. It was a clear provocation. 10 years with Sarah, and I meant less to her than Leo, who had been with the company for a mere 10 months. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. Without another moment's hesitation, I hit the gas and drove away from the company I had helped build. I had just pulled out of the main gate when I was rear-ended. I got out of my car and saw Sarah and Leo emerging from the vehicle behind me. Daniel, why did you brake so hard? I didn't even have time to react, Leo said. He walked over, looking mournfully at the dented front of his car. Such a shame. Sarah picked this out herself. Sarah's expression grew even more grim. Daniel, I saw you staring at Leo's car in the garage. Be honest, did you do this on purpose? Did you know he was behind you and brake check him just to get back at him? I almost laughed out loud. Here we go again. She was blaming me without even knowing the facts. Leo sighed dramatically. It's okay, Sarah. Let's not blame Daniel. He lost his job because of me, so it's only natural he'd be angry. It's all my fault, really. I should have been paying more attention. As he said this, he made a fist and moved to hit his own forehead in frustration, pulling the punch at the last second. Sarah, completely oblivious, rushed to rub his forehead. It's not your fault, honey, she cooed. Don't blame yourself for everything. As she turned and jabbed a finger into my forehead. Why can't you be more like Leo? Take some responsibility for once. He knows how to be humble. You've been in this business for years. Are you still going to be this immature and arrogant? I stumbled back from her push, a bitter laugh rising in my throat. For the past year, Leo had been stealing my accomplishments and scheming to pin his mistakes on me. And now he was the humble one, and I was the arrogant child. I knew there was no point in arguing, so I turned to leave. But Sarah stopped me again. I braced myself for another lecture defending Leo, but instead, she pulled me aside. Daniel, she said, her voice suddenly earnest. I'm only so hard on you because I have such high expectations. Why can't you see that I'm just trying to help you grow? Her gentle tone left me momentarily confused, but I quickly understood her true purpose. Sarah patted my shoulder. I'll tear up your resignation letter. I want you to think about apologizing to Leo. And by the way, you're at fault for the accident, so you'll be paying for the damages. It clicked. I glanced over at Leo. He clearly knew what Sarah was going to say. His face was a mask of smug satisfaction, and he shot me a defiant eye roll. I scoffed. I'm not paying a dime. You can check the traffic laws to see who's at fault in a rear-end collision, or we can call the cops. I have to go. I turned and walked away. Behind me, Sarah was fuming. I gave you a chance, Daniel. You're going to regret this. Regret? Not a chance. I got back in my car and sent a text to Mark. I quit. I can start at your company tomorrow. He called me back in less than a second, his voice ecstatic. Are you serious? He sounded a little hesitant. But what about Sarah? Mark and Sarah had launched their startups around the same time. But unlike Sarah, who had started with nothing, Mark had better resources and could offer a much more attractive package. Mark was desperate for a lead engineer and had offered me a larger equity stake and a better salary to join him. He even knew about my commitment to Sarah and had offered to let me work for him part-time. But for Sarah, I had turned him down without a second thought. At the lowest point in my life, I was nearly freezing to death on a street in downtown Austin during a freak snowstorm. It was Sarah who found me and dragged me to a police station, saving my life. I was eternally grateful, so I abandoned everything else to pour my entire being into her company, doing whatever it took to help it succeed. But now, it seems she didn't care about any of that. And after all these years, I figured I had more than repaid my debt to her. There was no reason to keep sacrificing myself. Don't worry about her, I told Mark. This is my decision. After confirming a time to sign a contract with Mark, I drove home to pack my things. I had bought the house with my own money, but it was filled with too many memories of Sarah. I couldn't stay there anymore. I started by cleaning under the bed, where I found a collection of scattered charcoal sketches. There were drawings of a girl smiling, looking pensive, peeling an apple with her head down, and putting on makeup in a mirror. They were all of Sarah, each expression captured with a vibrant, living energy. I had drawn them all for her. She used to love when I sketched her, treating each drawing like a precious treasure to be framed and saved. But ever since Leo showed up, she had grown impatient with it. She called it old-fashioned, a waste of time when you could just snap a picture with a phone. She didn't like me drawing her anymore. And so these drawings, once treasured, were now just shoved under the bed. The paper was yellowed and brittle. The images faded. I smiled bitterly. I gathered them up, put them in a metal basin in the bathroom, and lit one of the corners. The flames consumed the paper until nothing was left but a pile of ash. It felt like our love, which had been quietly burning away until it was gone. After that, I threw out everything else I could. I didn't own much, but the apartment still felt stark and empty afterward. I collapsed onto the sofa and pulled out my phone, planning to look for apartments near Mark's office. But the first thing I saw was a new picture Leo had posted in the company group chat. It was a photo of him and Sarah at an arcade. She was holding an armful of stuffed animals, beaming at the camera with a genuine, radiant smile. I hadn't seen her smile like that in a long time. I tried to take her to an arcade once, but we had barely gotten inside and exchanged our cash for tokens before she turned to leave. She called me childish and said she was too busy to waste time on something so pointless. She had no time for me, but she had plenty of time for Leo. I scoffed. It wasn't the arcade she found pointless. It was me. In the group chat, colleagues were already fawning over the picture, praising how beautiful Sarah looked and complimenting the photographer. Someone even joked about when they were tying the knot. Everyone in the company knew I was Sarah's fiancé, but they felt comfortable making jokes like that because Sarah made no effort to hide her flirtatious relationship with Leo at work. Normally, this would have sent me into a rage, and I would have called Sarah to tell her to be more professional. But now I felt nothing. I pretended I hadn't seen it and went back to my apartment's search. When I glanced at my phone again a few minutes later, I saw that several messages, including Leo's original photo, had been deleted from the chat. I assumed Sarah would be out late, but a short while later, she walked into the living room, laughing on the phone with Leo. When she saw me, a flicker of guilt crossed her face before it hardened. She shot me an exaggerated eye roll and disappeared into the bedroom. I knew she was waiting for me to come and smooth things over. Every time we fought at work, I was always the one to apologize and beg for her forgiveness. Even when she was clearly in the wrong, I would swallow my pride and take the blame. I used to tell myself it was my duty, that I owed it to her to keep the peace and preserve our relationship. But now it all just felt exhausting. I looked back down at my phone and continued what I was doing. A few moments later, she emerged from the bedroom, her expression sullen. "Did you see that message in the group chat?" "What message?" I asked, playing dumb. I didn't look up, but I sensed her relax slightly. "Oh, nothing. Just a work thing posted in the wrong chat." I found it amusing, but couldn't be bothered to call her out. I just wondered how many other secrets she and Leo were keeping from me. "Leo's car is already fixed. Have you gotten yours repaired yet?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. I recognized this as her offering me an olive branch. In the past, I would have taken this as a sign of forgiveness and immediately started trying to get back in her good graces. But now, without looking up, I just said, "It's a clunker. Not worth the repair costs." Sarah frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" I looked up, genuinely confused by her reaction. My car had gotten dinged up before, and whenever I mentioned getting it fixed, she'd said the exact same thing. I expected her to lose her temper, but instead, she sighed. "Look, I know you're still upset about what happened at the office, but Leo has been doing excellent work, and the car was a bonus to make sure we retain top talent." I almost laughed out loud. Sarah had hired Leo as a special exception, and his performance was a disaster. The list of his mistakes was endless. They ranged from the small, like ordering himself a fancy latte in a client meeting while getting the client tap water, to the catastrophic, like sending a partner our internal cost breakdown instead of the official price quote, costing the company tens of thousands of dollars. We would have been better off hiring a dog. If I didn't know better, I might have actually believed her. I remained silent, and Sarah continued. "You're my fiancé. When we get married, this company will be yours too. Why are you so obsessed with a paycheck? Why do you have to be so competitive with him?" "Daniel, everything I do is for the good of the company. I can't have people thinking I'm playing favorites with you." I knew that was just an excuse. Everyone at the office saw how she treated me versus how she treated Leo. I'd spend 3 sleepless nights finishing a project, only for her to hand it off to Leo at the last minute. He'd make a simple slide deck and get all the credit. I'd spend days courting a new client, and right before they signed, she'd take Leo to a celebratory dinner with them, and suddenly it was Leo who had closed the deal. The list went on and on. Over time, everyone just assumed she favored Leo. They started to think she actively disliked me, and I began to catch a lot of grief from other employees. She saw it all happening and did nothing. I didn't bother explaining. She would have just accused me of making excuses anyway. "Okay," I said flatly. "You don't have to justify it to me. I'm not with the company anymore. You can run it however you see fit." Sarah was silent. Finally, she sighed. She walked over to me, stood on her tiptoes, and wrapped her arms around my neck, her breath warm against my skin. To be honest, I was also being a little selfish. I wanted you to take a break, maybe start thinking about our wedding. "So, when are you going to propose?" she asked with a playful smile. I had already proposed to her multiple times, and she had rejected me every single time. Whenever we had a big fight, she would dangle the prospect of marriage in front of me to win me back. Sometimes I felt less like her fiancé and more like a train dog. I said nothing. She scratched me under the chin as if I were a pet. "Don't be mad anymore. Give me a smile, okay?" Then, in a deliberate attempt to placate me, she leaned in for a kiss. I could smell his cologne on her. A wave of nausea washed over me. I pushed her away, my face twisting in disgust as I pulled out a wipe to clean my hand where I'd touched her. Sarah froze, looking as if I'd slapped her. "Are you disgusted by me? I have to go out later." "I'm going to get changed," I said flatly, turning toward the bedroom. Sarah started to follow, but I shut the door in her face and locked it.